Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Tantra's Mantra where we go behind and beyond the tech news headlines. I am your host Prakash Sangam, a founder and principal at Tantra Analyst. It seems nowadays that we are in constant news cycles, we are jumping from one to another. Last few weeks have been really crazy with the many events, announcements, sorts of news and so on. And I'm doing again what I usually do when there is a lot of news to talk about and analyze. Dial my good friend and fellow analyst at NextCurve, Mr. Leonard Lee, and I did exactly that. And he is with us today to talk about it. We'll focus more on Computex and Apple's WWDC. Leonard, welcome back, man.
Yeah, hey, I'm really glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me on again, Prakash. And yes, it's a lot of stuff that's getting thrown our way, right? And as analysts, it's really challenging to absorb it all
Yeah.
and then synthesize and then be able to feed it back. So let's give this a go.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Leonard doesn't need an introduction to this audience as he's been on the podcast so many times. But anyway, doesn't hurt to remind our folks on where they can get all of your wonderful content, Leonard. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. So, Leonard Lee, executive analyst at NextCurve. For those of you who don't know me, just check out my website or my company website at www.next-curve.com. And I have a YouTube channel. You can just go to the media section. There's tons of content, and you can discover all that at NextCurve. And yeah, look forward to having you visit my research and checking out.
I highly recommend you guys to visit his website. A lot of interesting content there. All right, thank you for that, Leonard. So let's jump in. Let's start with the Computex, the world's biggest computing show. Lots of interesting announcements, many expected, some not really expected.
Yeah.
So, what was your overall take? I think Copilot Plus pieces were everywhere, right? You were there in person,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I think there was a strong residual from Microsoft Build 2024, and of course, at that event, you and I talked about the pre brief or event
Mm-hmm.
to that event, which was the unveiling of Copilot Plus PC and Qualcomm's now very unique role
Yeah.
as sort of the spearhead into this new era of AI, or let's call it Copilot Plus era with Microsoft, and so that residual really kind of bled over into Computex. And
Mm-hmm.
if I were to say what was like the main theme,
Mm-hmm.
the overarching theme, I would say the AI PC and Copilot Plus really was that. And it kind of overshadowed
Yeah.
Jensen Huang's pre-event keynote. He held it at a local university. I forgot the name of the university. You'll have to forgive me.
Uh-huh.
But he held basically a Taylor Swift like concert there, and we had the opportunity to attend, which was really nice. And so, thank you to the folks at NVIDIA for inviting me, as well as a number of analysts to partake and witness Jensen on stage.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of interesting stuff, a ton of things that I'm still trying to synthesize and put together in a report. And it just seems like a lot of things happening at the same time, right?
Yeah, and it is talk about AI, and Jensen was overshadowed. You're saying how often that happens,
I,
right? So it looks
I
like the edge AI and AI moving to edge is happening, right?
I think so. I mean, that's an interesting comment and suggestion, because in all reality,
Hmm.
you can train these models, right?
Yeah.
But you need to be able to apply the models, and that happens with inference. And when you look at how these AI applications
Hmm.
are designed and deployed in these chatbot type frameworks,
Hmm.
um, a lot of this is going to have to happen on device. It's probably not going to happen in the cloud. And so I think that's where there's this growing interest in on device AI. And everyone's getting into the game in terms of the silicon players, right?
Correct.
Intel, Qualcomm, most prominently, especially with Snapdragon,
Yeah.
um, X series, right, which is comprised of Elite as well as Plus. And you and I were there in San Francisco when they unveiled Plus, or I
Correct.
gave us a preview of Plus, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and no doubt, man. You know what? I mean, uh, they kind of set the benchmark, Qualcomm,
Yeah.
and that's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
and
saying?
also, I mean, they have been talking about it for a long time, right? Initially, nobody believed it, Then let
Yeah,
people realize, okay, this might happen, but not right now, maybe later, and so on. But like now, I mean, it's here, right? So that's
yeah,
quite remarkable. So
yeah.
and
But
also I
uh
mean, we'll talk about WWDC a little bit later. But what was talked there, Apple following the same model, which means these many of these use cases will spill over to smartphones as well. Again, that's the epitome of edge AI, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hint that we already have of what can happen on the AI PC it starts with the smartphone, right? And I think that's, I
Mhm.
mean, you and I have been privy to a lot of the innovations that Qualcomm in particular has been pushing out there. And I bring up Qualcomm simply because they've been kind of pioneering the AI PC stuff from the bottom up, right? Meaning
Yeah.
from a smartphone legacy on up. And with Apple and what they've been doing, they've been bringing AI computing to the
Hmm.
smartphone for years, right? Ever since like 2016,
Hmm.
and Qualcomm the same. So these guys have been competing and trying to, Qualcomm on the smartphone side, trying to enable the Android ecosystem with AI leadership. They've been going head to head, and a lot of these AI applications that we're seeing, a large portion of them are actually, believe it or not, ML based. They're not
Hmm.
generative.
Yeah.
They're coming to the PC, and I think they're going to have effect there simply because a lot of the processors that are coming to market, whether it's uh, you know Intel's Lunarlake or AMD's Ryzen 8 AI 300,
Hmm.
and of course, Qualcomm's X series. These are really geared toward the ultra and the lightweight, small,
Yeah.
lightweight,
Yeah.
power efficient category of laptops.
Yeah. Premium
Uh,
laptops to begin with, and then
they'll
yeah.
scale up. I mean, there's no. I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's no doubt. I don't know what you think, but I think that they're going to scale up. Uh,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
no reason why they shouldn't, right?
Yeah, it'll be more like how it happened with 5G, right? People are talking about use cases and such, but when you go into the market, it was very hard to buy, not to buy a 5G phone, right? So similarly, when you go into the market now, be it enterprise or consumer, very soon, probably next year around that time, it'd be hard to buy a non-AI PC, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think when you look at what Microsoft is really pushing here is that with on devices, they're trying to get a lot of these AI workloads offloaded onto device because cloud is very expensive, right? And there's that whole aspect of privacy that we'll probably talk about later. um, I think those are the things that are really going to start to shape the conversation about generative AI applications, right?
Hmm.
We're
Hmm.
probably going to be talking a lot less about cloud bound or cloud based. Those tend to be a little bit more niche in my observation. I don't know what you've observed, but there's a lot of things that you can do on device with generative AI that can do some helpful things. Do you know what I'm saying? Practical, helpful things.
Correct.
And I think that's eventually where generative AI is going to express its value to users.
Yeah, I mean, there are emerging use cases like Microsoft showed, like the like Apple showed. A lot of these were, as you mentioned, when the AI was happening on the phones to large extent, not so much on the laptops in terms of cameras and other
Yeah,
things. Now you have much more, right? With Copilot kind of applications. No matter what you are doing on your laptop and soon on the phones, there is always somebody helping you, nudging you in the right direction, and helping you do things in a much better way,
yeah,
with knowing the context
yeah,
fully well, and so it's very personalized as well, and
yeah,
so on. So, and going back
yeah,
to SoC is part of these Copilot Plus PCs, and as we had talked about in our previous episode, Qualcomm came up with a big bang. More than 20 models.
oh
All seven of the PC OEMs were committed to it. Many of these with multiple SKUs, different tiers, and so on. Right. So,
yeah. Mhm.
and AMD and Intel had to come back with their stuff, because they don't want to leave
Yeah,
anything to Qualcomm per se, right? For this, I mean, they already have
yeah,
ceded the leadership, because the first Copilot Plus pieces will purely be and only be on Qualcomm solutions. So they are coming in behind.
yeah,
How much behind is, it's a question that we talk about. Yeah, right. So they came up with, I
yeah,
mean, AMD
yeah,
said that 100 plus designs. Intel said everybody is working on them, and so on. And Intel also said they also see huge uptick in AI PCs, even without this 40 plus stops kind of NPU in them, with their existing Meteor Lake, which they also call
yeah,
AI PCs, not Copilot Plus,
yeah.
but AI PCs. They said they are seeing a lot of traction there. So I think the whole PC
Mm.
is becoming really interesting again after a very long time, right?
Yeah, and also very confusing
Mm,
because what is an AI PC versus Copilot Plus? I think that was like one of the things that folks continue to
yeah.
struggle with a little
Great.
bit, right? Because and then it all boils down to, and it was the big topic of Computex, the NPU tops, right?
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
that being kind of really squishy. AMD is coming at it with their FPGA
Hmm.
based solution, and then you have Intel and Qualcomm with their DSP based
Yeah.
approach. And it was interesting. You had AMD come in with the Ryzen
Hmm.
AI 300 with 50 NPU tops, but then you have the guys to beat, which is Qualcomm's X Elite
Yeah.
or X series at 45 tops, and then you see Lunarlake
Hmm.
coming
Hmm.
in with 48, right? But at the end of the day, yeah, they're kind of like at parity now. It's like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think that's where the differentiation is really going to come as we see
Correct.
these devices hit the market. It really, and this is a discussion that I had with other
Hmm.
analysts that I was hanging out with. At the end of the day, it's going to boil down to battery life, right? And
Exactly.
so,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so it's quality of the NPU,
Yeah.
how efficient is the NPU
Correct.
from perfect watt,
Yeah.
and then the CPU, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I think this is going to be interesting to see what Intel comes to market with, and how it tests out in devices with their new CPU,
Correct.
right? So they have 4+4 configuration,
Yeah.
you know, 4 E cores and 4 P cores. It's a very, very different architecture,
Yeah.
but I think it might surprise people. So
Yeah.
we'll stay tuned.
Correct. So I mean, a few tops, NPU tops here and there, I don't think makes
Yeah,
huge difference in terms of user experience. I completely agree with you. So, performance per watt is going to be a key criteria. I guess what? So I was talking to Samsung on Copilot Plus PCs, and I asked them. So when you go talk to your customers when you're designing these PCs, there's a
yeah,
lot of AI and other things. What is the top requirement and need in your customer's mind? Guess what they said? It's not AI. Of course, AI is given battery life. right? So some might
Yeah,
think battle on the laptops is over, but it's not. Especially with the
yeah,
NPU coming in, and if the AI workloads becoming
mhm,
big, and if you really use Copilot Plus, right, no matter what you do on the laptop, there's always Copilot might be running in the background, which means
yeah,
NPU power consumption is going to be critically important. All the
yeah,
things that we are hearing that will happen on the phone in AI and the laptop will occur with Copilot Plus
right.
approach. NPU power consumption will become critically important, right? So yeah,
Right, exactly. So it's like tops per it should be tops per watt.
correct.
You know, they always have to factor in
Yeah,
the power aspect. Like we said earlier, these
correct.
NPUs
Yeah,
are not architected the
yeah.
same, and they don't perform the same, even though they might have a certain top figure that they're promoting. But
Hmm.
it's going to be interesting in terms of like some insights around the MPU. I think a lot,
Yeah.
so Copilot Plus aside,
Hmm.
yeah, a lot of the demos that we saw,
Hmm.
they were more related to your classical ML, right? So things that we've seen before for years, right? And the classical use cases in terms of battery, the power efficiency and running that stuff on an MPU. So that was demonstrated. Still, a lot of the generative stuff,
Hmm. Yeah,
again, Copilot Plus aside, still emerging. But
yeah.
what's kind of apparent is, things like ML jobs related to security or monitoring and what have you, things that are background
Hmm.
tasks that you can offload off of
Hmm.
a CPU. Those are probably going to be the practical
Hmm.
and valuable application, because if you think of it in terms of security, you want people to be able to run these agents in the in the background
Hmm.
without
Yeah.
just sucking up your battery, right? By running on the CPU. And so that's probably going to be some of that type of thing is going to be the near term
Yeah.
valuable applications. So it's like these simple
Hmm.
things, right? Um, but they're going to be valuable. So
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and also, I mean, the expectation was that the x86 Copilot Plus PCs, both from Intel, AMD, would be coming towards the end of the year. And there's some rumors that might be earlier for AMD, but AMD said, they announced like 100 plus models or something,
yeah,
and some of them might be shipping in July. So that was interesting.
right.
Any idea on what those will contain? Will they support full Copilot Plus stack that Microsoft has? How many of them are launching? Any idea there?
No, we didn't really get a lot of color on that.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, they are supposed to be Copilot Plus
yeah,
PCs. So yeah, I attended the AMD session, and so that was pretty clear.
uh-huh,
I think the Lunar Lake machines. The suggestion is that you look at sometime in Q3, so
hmm,
September-ish timeframe, and that's something that Intel's mentioned before.
yeah,
So that's probably when we'll see the first machine ship, and that'll be critical because that's back to school. That's
correct. So,
holiday season, and that's going to be important for Intel to get into the Copilot Plus PC flow, right?
correct, correct. There are two critical periods for PC market, right? The back to school, which is August September time frame, and then uh, holidays toward the end of the year. So I think Qualcomm is will squarely be in on the back to school period this year.
Yeah,
AMD will see how many and how much they'll get up with,
yeah,
and then towards the end for holiday season, I think all three will be competing, right? So
yeah. It should be pretty brutal.
yeah. When you look at consumer space, none of these tops, technical specifications matter, right? It is brand, what consumers believe in, and how they feel when they, look at
Yeah,
look and feel of it. Maybe battery life is the critical specification they look at.
yeah,
Other than, I mean, I don't know, it'll be too difficult in my view to for
yeah,
them to understand 45 tops versus 47, 48 versus 50 tops and
yeah.
so on, right?
And so yeah, they and oddly,
Yeah.
um, Apple is sort of the elephant in the room. You know, even though Qualcomm really took the stage, and dominated in terms of presence and position. There was that thing in the background lurking. Yeah,
So I mean, at the show, Copilot Plus PC was the
yeah.
hero. You said anything from the data center GPU. I mean, Nvidia, Intel, and AMD all had announcements to make on the GPU and data center side. Any quick views there before we move to WWDC?
Yeah, one of so we'll start off with Intel. One of the things that really kind of popped. So, I've been tracking Intel and their
Mm-hmm.
new line of processor for data center for quite some time. So I have a whole earful of that, but I'll just talk about the highlights.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I think, I was impressed with, as well as fellow analysts, was Sierra Forest. So, Xeon 6
Six, yeah,
with 200 up to 288 cores,
yeah.
e-cores. Um, that's kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And my buddy Jim McGregor, Jim McGregor
Yep,
of Terius Research,
yeah.
he was suggesting that Intel could actually um, gain leadership,
Mm-hmm.
start to gain leadership at the next generation,
Mm.
especially with the core efficiencies that you're going to be looking at, with the next generation Xeon processors.
I see.
And the other thing is that is something that I think really stood out amongst the analysts and my own observation. And if we go to AMD,
Mm-hmm.
yes, they introduced the MI 325X,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and I guess the big headline coming out of that session was that they're going to, or that keynote was they're going to go on this 1 year cadence
Correct.
uh, to mirror what NVIDIA is doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then,
Yep.
of course, with NVIDIA, the thing that really stuck out in the keynote, and we've seen, a lot of that material and what Jensen's presented several times already through the course of the year,
Mm-hmm.
was Rubin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, um, and so that's going to be the generation of GPU systems after Blackwell.
Yep.
Uh, so yeah, but all that stuff's really sounds great. It's already part of a continuum of expectations that I think we are all tuned into.
Mm-hmm.
Again, AI PC.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
Yeah,
That sums it up. Okay. So let's quickly move to WWDC. I mean, it was highly anticipated. A lot of questions on what Apple is doing on AI, and a lot of distractors saying, Apple is behind. A lot of
yeah,
rumors, news on how it is working with OpenAI and relying on OpenAI and so on.
yeah,
So
yeah,
the WWDC keynote came and gone. So there's a lot of news. I think
yeah.
the main, of course, news was Apple Intelligence. There are other, other
Sure.
things announced which are more incremental, but mostly the big news is Apple Intelligence. So I think they played it well. They showed some use cases. They actually showed what you could use AI for in a phone or in a
Yeah.
laptop in a
Mhm.
user friendly way, in my view. None of this is new. You could do the same thing on any other smartphone or laptop. But I think they showed, because of their ecosystem, how they can make it much more user friendly and much more easy to do.
Mhm.
And they pushed
Yeah.
really hard on privacy and security. How data, all
Mhm.
the data lives on the device, nobody has access to it, and even if they have to move
Mhm.
data from the device to the cloud, users should be involved. Even the cloud that the data will be run on,
Yeah.
and it will run on mostly
Mhm.
Apple Silicon, and the source code would be ready for any third party to review in terms of how they're using the data and so on. So there's a lot of focus on there. And then, of course,
Yeah.
they basically highlighted all the things they could do with their vertical integration that others cannot do. So that was pretty clear.
Yeah.
But I think what threw me and, of course, many others off as well, the support of Chat GPT, and they said they are looking to support others as well on the in the future, like Google and so on. That kind of threw
Mm.
everybody off. So you were talking about everything, doing everything within Apple, but you also work with OpenAI and send stuff there and other things. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see how that will work and how that affects
Yeah.
the confidence and the trust that consumers
Yeah.
have on Apple, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but I think one of the biggest
Mm,
takeaways from WWDC is that they actually trained their own models. So they
correct.
mentioned foundation models several times.
Yeah.
They mentioned it once, but you really had to get into the developer sessions to really understand what they were doing. And so
Yeah.
there is a report out that I think it was a Reuters report
Hmm.
that mentioned that Apple had trained their own models. Okay,
Correct.
these are their own LLM. It's an LLM as well as a diffusion model,
Yeah.
um, in not in partnership, using basically Google's TPU farms to
Yeah.
train these models,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so they're basically just a hyperscaler customer
Yeah.
using their resources to train these models,
Yeah.
which I think is smart. I mean,
Hmm.
people talk about, hey, should you buy equipment, or invest in your own data center, or you should do cloud and just,
Hmm.
uh, do the whole OpEx thing. Well, Apple's doing the OpEx thing and they're not buying GPUs from NVIDIA or anyone else.
Yeah.
They're going to be using their own Apple Silicon, probably some form of, a serverized version
Version.
of
Correct.
M4,
Yeah.
or who knows what that really is,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
all we know is this Apple Silicon and the Apple, software stack plus security and privacy framework.
Yeah.
And so I think that is actually probably the most important takeaway. And I think the folks who have concerns, so like got folks like Elon Musk, bless you,
Yeah.
folks like Elon Musk, probably have it wrong. The underlying foundation model is not OpenAI, ChatGPT,
Correct.
GPT-4, or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's not. It's no one's. It's apparently Apple's. So, and this is a really interesting strategy, right? And it kind of mirrors sort of mirrors what Microsoft does, although Microsoft seems to be a little bit more tightly coupled with OpenAI. But I think what they're doing with OpenAI is a really kind of a loose coupling, right? They're providing sort of a plug-in into like rewrite and some of these other functions, like quote unquote chatbot functions
Yeah.
within iOS 18 and iPad OS 18, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm.
And these are not tightly integrated into the software. Do you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
almost like a plugin,
Correct. Right.
and
Yeah.
there's gonna be options. So the way I look at it is kind of like what Apple has done with browsers, right? Search engines.
Mm.
You get an option,
Yeah.
and eventually, as Apple starts to work with other companies with these world models, uh, you're probably going to see something very similar to what Apple has done with Google and search, and having a default, search engine. They'll probably have a default world model, or at least the user can designate one, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think it's really smart. And
I agree that most often, even if you look at their presentation, they spend like a couple of minutes on talking about OpenAI and spend most of their time on how it's their own model, how LLMs and diffusion, as you mentioned, they're trained by them.
yeah, but I don't think people really got.
One thing that was confusing to me was, why mix that with OpenAI and create confusion? Like, even if it is a plugin, you can use OpenAI on the phone right now, right on the device right now.
Yeah.
and also Sam Altman was basically in the audience in the prime location. So
Sure.
they highlighted a little bit, but not too much. So I'm still not very clear on how much they will use, but based on what they said, it is mostly their own stuff, right?
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think it's going to be interesting because if you take sort of an 80-20 rule, 80% of
yeah,
any interaction that you have, and it'll probably be more,
hmm,
is going to be with Apple Intelligence. And then, like they kind of suggested, if you have these occasions, and they're
yeah,
typically going to be like niche occasions
mm,
to tap into a world model, then yeah, they have that convenient little plugin, and then it provides a little warning or a consent prompt, and then it sends the information to Chat GPT. And I think it's the free version, right?
correct.
And 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 then they also mentioned that paid Chat GPT users would be able to get the paid benefits of that subscription and be able to use it. But that's not Apple. you know
That's what I'm saying. They never give, even if they are working with somebody, they never give them a pedestal to,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But then, people are already using
yeah,
Open AI, Chat GPT, GPT-4 APIs.
yeah,
They're already using it
yeah,
on Apple devices,
hmm,
right?
yeah,
And so this is just, again, it's more of a UI level integration. It's not an OS like deep integration, and it certainly isn't, germane to and core to uh, Apple Intelligence. And if you read a lot of what's been written out there, that's where the confusion is. People didn't pick up on that, but then that's I put that on the on diligence. If you're going to write about stuff, know what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying before you write it.
yeah. I understand that, but I think, but my point is from an average consumer perspective, right? I mean, that's another thing that I want to point out. Almost all of Apple talked about Apple Intelligence was for consumer, right? It's 100% consumer play for now. Maybe
Sure.
there'll be
Yeah.
more application use case on the enterprise
That's
side, but right now when they talked about it, it was 100% consumer. It's we'll see how it goes, but I think it's too much for depending on the consumer, or putting on the consumer
yeah.
on, if you do this, it's on us, and we provide all this privacy and everything that we talked about and we
But
stand for. However, when you
hey,
do this, you get out
yeah.
of it. It feels to me like the small pond footnote. If you do this, it's all on us and we guarantee it, but if you don't do this, you go outside this, then we are not responsible, kind of a thing. It's in my view, it's a little bit too much to ask from average consumers, and we will see,
Whoa, come on, gosh, yeah, but wait. That's why they need to call Tantra analysts. These media folks should call you. They shouldn't just go off and try to interpret this stuff. That's what analysts are for, right?
true, but I'm saying from an average consumer perspective, it might be we'll see how it goes. I understand that open AI people know about ChatGPT and so on, but so are then concerned about it.
Well, that'll better
Mm,
better journalism is going
yeah,
to help. Let's put it that way. And I think we do our jobs by clarifying things, and hopefully,
yeah,
anyone who's listening to the podcast is gonna pick up the clarity and write about that instead of confusing consumers and confusing audiences. And that's exactly why
yeah,
we're analysts, right? And that's a value we should bring to the
yeah,
table. So, yeah, hopefully a lot of people call both
yeah,
of us up and try to get clarity, because yeah, there's no reason for the confusion,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, indeed. So okay, but one thing it really made very clear, the whole Apple and intelligence announcement, is that so far what Qualcomm is has been talking about on device AI, right? It's basically a huge endorsement to that,
Yeah.
right? It's not just vaporware. A lot of things are happening. That's one thing. And the second interesting that I observed, I haven't seen many people talk about or write about it yet, is there is always this confusion, right? So everybody knows in a hybrid AI scenario, you have to make a decision on where to run that workload, on the device or on the cloud. And maybe some part will run on device and you want to do more, then you push that to the cloud and do it there. And how do you decide, who decides, how it is distributed? It's still an open question.
Yeah.
And I've said this a few times, and probably in one of my previous podcasts as well. To do that, if you have a single vertically integrated entity like Apple,
Mhm.
who controls the underlying SoC and the software and the framework to do that decision on where and when to run what workloads,
Mhm.
is hugely beneficial.
Yeah.
Now think about that being done on, say, a Copilot plus PC. Then you, because now the SoC is coming from somebody else, the operating system is coming from somebody else, the AI applications are coming from somebody else. True for Android as well. Then you need some sort of a framework that all these parties agree to on, and how to divide this workload, right? In terms of Apple's
Yeah.
vertical integration, they control everything and they
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
implement it much sooner in much better way than anybody else.
Oh, definitely. And so their whole private cloud compute,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a very interesting thing to examine. I mean, it's a little bit murky. They use, I mean, for audiences like us, right,
Hmm.
analysts, it's just like a bunch of high level mumbo jumbo,
Yeah.
but very interesting mumbo jumbo.
Hmm.
And I think we need time to be able to take a look at how they're implementing this. But
Correct.
I think you're absolutely right. They do have the advantage of being able to actually architect a hybrid AI infrastructure.
Yeah.
And that is really, really number one, elusive and hard. And we see that with RAN,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's all this open stuff and cloud, blah blah blah. It's a lot more difficult than people make it initially made it out to be.
Yeah.
But have this control and to be able to design the kind of intelligence and orchestration that you need to be able to securely in a privacy protected way distribute these workloads and data access, right?
Hmm.
It, is going to be challenging for anyone outside of the Apple ecosystem. And of course, if anyone claims that they can do this, we're more than happy to hear from them. But the thing is that people oftentimes associate Apple with just endpoint devices, right?
Yeah.
They're actually very, very savvy in CDN, ADN, application distribution networks, and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. So all these things that they charge Apple App Store guys for, right? Developers for the App Store, these services. I mean, do you think all this stuff happens magically? There's actually, they have some serious chops when it comes to distributed computing and data center. And so, the fact that they're also going to be using Apple Silicon in their data centers to support and host, Apple Intelligence is a huge statement as well, right? Because everyone assumes that NVIDIA has the greatest, AI data center stuff.
Correct.
Well,
So yeah,
apparently
yeah.
Apple
That,
doesn't.
that's kind yeah, that's kind of went largely unnoticed, right? So they kind of made an announcement, if you will, that we'll have data center class, M series chips,
Yeah,
and we'll
yeah,
build data centers with it,
yeah.
right? So
Which is, it could be interesting because if you think about Nuvia and Qualcomm,
yeah,
they were originally
exactly, yeah,
designing core IP for servers,
servers, yeah,
right? And so there's
yeah,
I think there's opportunity for Qualcomm there to also get into servers, but we already see Nvidia doing that with Grace, right? So
correct, yeah, yeah. So I mean, the opportunity is basically, when you have full control of this framework. I mean, yeah, I think that's an
yeah,
interesting stuff. So
it's gonna
so
be tough.
and that'll show up in the user experience.
Yeah.
and the battery life of the devices. I mean, if, for example, if you take a same application running on both Apple ecosystem, be it iPhone or Mac, versus Android or Microsoft. I mean, if they the hybrid AI moving between different parts of the AI network, if you will be so smooth here on Apple side, but it'll take time for all these companies to come to an agreement, have a framework, and then decide, and so
Right.
on. Which
Yeah.
I don't think any work. I've been every AI company I talk to, I ask this question. They're saying what, and which means that they're not even thought about it,
Yeah.
and the groundwork for building that framework is not even started. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah. Um, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And just that orchestration piece is tough. So yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna
yeah.
be
And then anything else that you observed from WWDC other than the things they talked about?
no, I just wanted to go back to the beginning. I think, you're right. A lot of this stuff is not new. And that's actually what I was saying for a whole year when Microsoft was introducing all their
Yeah.
Copilot stuff. It's like, this stuff is not new. This is just, chatbot frameworks. This is like chatbots resurrected. And now you're just going through your portfolio of tooling and applications and then creating plugins for the chatbot. So that's why we see this velocity. And then I think this notion that Apple is behind, it's
Hmm.
like, no, they just showed that they may be ahead.
Hmm.
And they did it like that. And it's because of all the things that they had already built into their OS.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of discounting of their OS, especially in the Android and Windows world where they say, oh, it's like a toy.
Hmm.
Not really. The proof is in the pudding, and so this may be a wake up call for everyone else, but then it's also a statement about generative AI. You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? It's like, well, what is it really going to look like at the end, and how are the economics and the revenue share and the business model? How are those all going to really play out going forward? But I think you know people should really study what's happening with what Apple announced.
Yeah,
It should be,
and they said it is free of cost, at least in the beginning. So
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and
Ultimately,
they,
I'm thinking they have to charge, and they will charge. But I think that's a swipe at
mm,
Microsoft and OpenAI and others, with basically
no,
charging now for premium service.
I think they're going to try to push everything on device,
Yeah.
and what they may do is they may charge folks who have older devices to have server side AI intelligence, right? Basically,
Yeah.
augmenting devices that don't have a qualifying NPU,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that's a revenue opportunity for Apple. For somebody who has an iPhone 10, let's say,
Hmm.
that wants to be able to use some Apple intelligence features.
Yeah.
So, they
They'll
have that
probably
angle.
they'll make the all these features only run on the latest phones or the laptops with the
Great.
NPU in them, right? So that's how they basically push users to upgrade quickly. So
Yeah, yeah. But if it's just part of the OS, most of it's running on device. I don't
yeah.
think they're going to charge for it.
But I mean, but if you don't have an NPU on the device, it'd be hard to run these, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying is that for
Mm.
those devices that don't, you might be able to subscribe to uh, Apple Intelligence as a service, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of like iCloud.
Yeah. That's it.
So yeah, we'll
Looks.
see.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's
It
because
looks
of
a
the
little bit cumbersome
hybrid
for.
infrastructure,
Yeah. I mean,
right?
their idea is always have a frictionless user experience. So maybe they throw in as part of the iCloud, subscription or something like that. I doubt, at least in the beginning, they'll have a separate line item for running AI on cloud.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
either way they
Yeah.
have
Good.
options,
Good.
so
All right, man. As usual, that was a great discussion. Thank you very much for your insights.
oh, absolutely. And thanks for having me on, and thanks for sharing yours. It's always good to kind of debate and riff off of your thinking. So always good stuff that comes out of that.
And not agree to on each and every topic, right? It's always good to have
It would
diversity.
be boring otherwise. So yeah, no, it's good stuff.
All right, think again. So, folks, that's all we have for now. Hope you found this discussion informative and useful. If so, please hit like and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening this on. I'll be back soon with another episode, putting light on another interesting tech subject. Bye bye for now.